This man was Marcus, and he was in the middle of torturing a man. Soon after, he received a call from his boss, a man named Belcour, who asked him to capture a man named Guy. It was revealed that Guy was a former employee of Belcour's company, and he had fled to Italy. After taking the call, Marcus made sure to execute the man he had been torturing and then left the place. Meanwhile, Guy, the target of the hunt, had just arrived in a rural town in Italy. He was very careful. He kept observing everyone around him because he already knew that his former boss would definitely send a team after him. The reason he was being pursued was his refusal to follow Belcour's orders to develop an advanced weapon. Guy believed that creating such a weapon would endanger everyone. Furthermore, it was revealed that Guy was a former Marine and a weapons expert. Guy soon entered a local shop to buy a bottle of water. While there, he happened to glance at the shopkeeper's laptop, which was displaying a weapons simulator and was trying to build a rifle. Seeing there was a mistake in the build, Guy immediately corrected the components, pointing out that the sequence was wrong. The shopkeeper, whose name was Chase, instantly realized that Guy was no ordinary person. As Guy was about to leave, Chase's sister, Josie, arrived and was clearly flustered by Guy's good looks. Guy, however, remained composed and ignored her attention. As Guy walked out, Josie bravely called out to him. She then introduced herself and invited him to stop by her cafe, which was located next door. Guy thanked her and promised he would visit her cafe later, and then made his way deep into the forest where he planned to hide out. Somewhere else, Marcus was planning a strategy to hunt Guy with his team, when suddenly, Ranish, Belcour's right-hand man and the engineer who knows Guy's work, said that Guy was definitely hiding in a forest in Italy, specifically in his father's old cabin, a location he knew Guy once occupied. He then ordered Marcus to proceed immediately, while he and the rest of the team had a separate business to settle with their boss, Belcour, first. Meanwhile, Guy had finally arrived and settled into his father's remote cabin. He immediately began setting up several booby traps in case the enemy showed up. He also dug a deep hole beneath a discarded car wreck, preparing it for some unknown use. The next morning, Marcus arrived in town. Coincidentally, the first place he stopped was Chase's shop to buy a drink. He then asked Chase if he had seen a strange man who often wore a cowboy hat. Chase instantly realized that Marcus was looking for Guy, but he chose to play dumb, telling Marcus he knew nothing. A short time later, Guy returned to Chase's shop to buy some food. At that moment, Chase immediately warned Guy that a man with long hair wearing black clothing had just been looking for him. Guy knew instantly that it must be Marcus, who was sent by his former boss. He then warned Chase that any other strangers who came looking for him were guaranteed to be bad people. Guy soon left the shop to return to his hideout. However, shortly after walking down the road, he realized Marcus was having breakfast nearby and had briefly spotted him. Luckily, he managed to escape without leaving a trace. A few hours later, Marcus's reinforcement team arrived to assist in the hunt for Guy. Seeing Ranish was not amongst them, he immediately asked where he was. One of his men replied that Ranish was still dealing with their boss and would join them later. But Marcus was impatient, so he immediately ordered his men to follow him into the woods to hunt Guy. Upon reaching the woods, Marcus and his team began searching for Guy's father's old cabin. After searching for some time, they discovered a booby trap Guy had set. This convinced him that Guy's location must be nearby. Meanwhile, Guy had been monitoring them using CCTV. His first move was to detonate a rigged trap light he had installed. The explosion successfully injured one of Marcus's team members. However, Marcus, seeing the injured man as a liability, immediately executed him. They then continued toward the cabin that Guy had been occupying. After a short while, Guy triggered another trap, allowing him to quickly run from the area and escape using a motorcycle. On the other hand, Marcus was furious and frustrated because his two remaining men were useless. In the end, he chose to execute both of his remaining subordinates without hesitation. After that, he contacted Belcour to inform him that his entire team had been killed by Guy and requested additional forces, explaining that capturing their target was much harder than they had anticipated. After the call with Marcus, Belcour immediately summoned Ranish to his office and instructed him to quickly join Marcus, bringing along all the available men. However, he made it clear that Guy must be captured alive because he still needed Guy to complete the advanced weapon. After that, Ranish quickly left with his team to follow Marcus. Meanwhile, back in town, Guy returned to Chase's shop and asked Chase if he had any secret place where he could hide from the people hunting him. Chase replied that his family once owned a bunker deep in the woods that could serve as a perfect hideout. He then asked Guy who he really was and why these bad people were pursuing him. Knowing Chase was trying to help him, Guy finally explained the real deal, saying that he was a former Marine and weapons expert who had worked for a private company. Back then, he was ordered by his boss to create an advanced weapon for war, but he refused. Unfortunately, his boss did not take the rejection well and sent a team to capture him. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Chase immediately told Guy where the bunker was. Before heading to the hideout, Guy decided to stop by Josie's cafe to meet her. There, he apologized to her, explaining that he could not spend more time at her cafe for now. Fortunately, Josie understood, and they shared a close moment before Guy quickly departed. It seemed like both had developed feelings for each other. That evening, Ranish finally arrived. Marcus immediately asked why Ranish had come alone, and Ranish replied that his troops would arrive a little later. He then explained that Belcour wanted them to capture Guy alive, so they had to make sure they didn't kill Guy. Marcus simply said he would try his best to comply. Meanwhile, Guy was seen sitting alone, contemplating his life while setting a bonfire in front of the bunker entrance, when suddenly someone approached him. Fortunately, the man was Chase. Guy immediately urged him to leave and not return. However, Chase refused, insisting that he wanted to talk to Guy. During their conversation, Chase confessed that he really wanted to become a weapons expert like Guy and expressed his desire to be able to create advanced weapons to protect his town and country. Upon hearing this, Guy promised that he would teach Chase everything he needed to know once all these problems were over. Chase then asked Guy what he planned to confront his enemies. Guy then said that he had no plan other than to wipe out all of them. After that, he told Chase to leave quickly, as it was already very late. The next morning, Marcus, Ranish, and their team began entering the forest to search for Guy's location. Soon after, Ranish successfully spotted a surveillance camera that Guy had mounted high up in a tree, and without hesitation, Marcus instantly destroyed it. They then proceeded to the cabin that Guy had previously occupied, as Marcus still believed Guy was there. Once they entered, a trap was triggered, resulting in another death among them. Seeing that the place was empty, Marcus and Ranish decided to head back to town, convinced that Guy was no longer there. Upon reaching the town, they stopped directly in front of Josie's cafe. At that moment, Chase was visibly shocked by the large number of Marcus's troops, and he quickly ran into the cafe. Ranish saw this and immediately ran after Chase, suspicious that the young man was hiding something from him. Chase managed to hide behind a chair, while Josie intercepted Ranish. Ranish demanded to know where the teenager who had just run inside had gone. Josie tried her best to divert his attention by offering Ranish the dishes on the menu. Fortunately, Ranish seemed annoyed and decided to leave. After Ranish was gone, Chase came out of his hiding, and Josie asked him what was going on. Chase refused to answer and immediately left to warn Guy that Ranish had come with a ton of troops to hunt him. The next morning, Marcus, Ranish, and their troops once again entered the forest to search for Guy, as they were certain that Guy was still hiding somewhere in the woods. Meanwhile, Guy was still sleeping inside the bunker, while Chase had already gone home. Fortunately, Guy was woken up by his CCTV alarm, which showed that Marcus and his men were nearby. Shortly after, one of the mercenaries successfully located the bunker entrance and quickly informed Marcus and Ranish. An argument immediately ensued between Marcus and Ranish. Marcus wanted them to storm the bunker immediately, confident that Guy was inside, but Ranish was hesitant, fearing that the place was filled with traps. At that moment, Guy decided to sneak out of the bunker quietly. However, he was quickly spotted by the mercenaries and immediately pursued. It turned out that he intentionally lured them because he had left a trap behind a tree, which successfully injured and eliminated a few of them. Guy continued running, but unfortunately, he was eventually shot in his stomach and fell. However, when the mercenaries approached, he had somehow vanished, having quickly hidden himself in the nearby bush. After the mercenaries passed by, he immediately treated the wound on his stomach. Sometime later, Guy was seen assembling weapons from the equipment he carried. He even crafted improvised bombs to use against Marcus and Ranish's men. That evening, Chase was seen at his shop. Soon after, Marcus and one of his men arrived. Realizing they were there to capture him, Chase chose to run, leading to a frantic chase through the town. After running for some time, 2 police sheriffs showed up, and Chase attempted to seek their help. Unfortunately, Marcus swiftly executed both sheriffs. Chase tried to escape again, but this time, he was finally caught by one of Marcus's men. The next morning, Guy returned to town stealthily. He was shocked to see that Chase had been captured. Furthermore, the enemies had also taken control of the entire town. At the same time, he noticed that Josie was hiding behind a car, and while moving silently, he immediately approached Josie. He requested her help in luring Marcus's men to an abandoned church, as he planned to ambush and eliminate them all there. Josie, knowing her brother was being held hostage by the enemies, immediately agreed to Guy's request. Soon after, Josie bravely approached Marcus and Ranish, offering to reveal Guy's location if they would release her brother immediately. Marcus quickly pointed his weapon at Josie, angered that she dared to tell them what to do. But fortunately, Ranish stopped him, telling Marcus not to be rough to her. He then told her that he would release Chase after Guy was successfully captured. Upon hearing that, Josie then told them that Guy was hiding inside an abandoned church in the outskirts of the town. Shortly after, Marcus, Ranish, and their men arrived at the church, and they immediately entered the building fully armed. Then once they were inside, Guy immediately activated the bomb he had planted earlier, triggering a powerful explosion. He then proceeded to attack them using his makeshift weapons. He quickly eliminated the remaining men stationed outside. He then went back inside and continued his ambush, taking down the enemies one by one. Eventually, Guy found himself facing Marcus head-on. The two were equally matched in a fierce fight, and he seemed overwhelmed at first. Fortunately, he ultimately managed to kill Marcus using another trap he made. He then went back outside, believing all his enemies were dead. However, as he opened Marcus's car, he was surprised to find Ranish inside, holding Chase hostage with a gun pointed at his head. Not wanting Chase to be harmed, Guy chose to surrender. Ranish and his two remaining men then drove Guy and Chase away in a car. However, mid-journey, Guy attacked the driver, causing the vehicle to crash into a tree. Fortunately, both Guy and Chase survived the crash and quickly got out of the wrecked car. Guy then instructed Chase to run and hide while he faced Ranish and the remaining mercenary. After Chase left, Guy lured Ranish and his subordinate toward the abandoned car he found in the wood earlier. He immediately got inside the car and quickly prepared what seemed to be another trap. Meanwhile, Ranish's subordinate continuously fired his gun at Guy. Seeing that, Ranish ordered his lackey to stop shooting, saying that they needed to capture Guy alive. When the man refused to listen, Ranish immediately executed him. He then banged on the car door, hoping Guy would surrender, but suddenly the car exploded. Several months later, Chase was seen visiting someone who turned out to be Guy. Curious about what had happened, Chase asked how Guy managed to survive the explosion. Guy then explained that after he prepared his trap inside the car, he quickly entered the hole he had previously dug beneath the car to avoid the explosion. Then he triggered the bomb and killed Ranish in the blast. He also revealed that he was now free, with no one left hunting him, as he had killed his former boss, Belcour, a week earlier. Shortly after, Josie, Chase's sister, showed up. It was clear that she and Guy were officially a couple, and they rode off together on a motorcycle.